Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Nike Equality Live Workers Speak Out. So my name is Abhirami Sivalohanandan, South Asia Regional Coordinator, Asia Flow Wage Alliance, and then I'm honored to be your host for this important webinar today. I would like to invite Asia Flow Wage Alliance Deputy International Coordinator, Mr. Viranda, to open the webinar. Vira.
Thank you, Abhirami. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you all for joining this important event today. There has been an increasing trend in brand vying to proclaim themselves as the champions of equality and social justice. Now more than ever, it has become crucial to look into this claim and listen to the voice of those directly affected by their practices. Today, we will delve into the reality behind Nike public image, exploring the discrepancies between their marketing message and their experiences and the experiences of their workers on the ground. 50 years ago, on this same day, a brand called Blue Ribbon Sport officially became Nike. Part of the story of Nike rise to one of the world's most prominent brands has been its advertising campaign that emphasize equality and empowerment of women and girls. However, beneath the surface of this glossy advertisement lies a different story, one told by the very workers who produce these goods under challenging conditions. We are privileged to have with us today a panel of brave speakers who will share their first-hand experiences and shed light on the realities of working within Nike supply chain. Their testimonies will offer a crucial perspective on the true cost of our athletic wear and the urgent need to address it. So, welcome to the webinar, and then let's listen to the worker stories. Abhirami, pass it back to you.
Thank you, Vira. So let me give a brief introduction to our one-year journey in the Fight the Highs before we start listening from our workers. So 1 year ago, the Asia Flow Wage Alliance and then Global Labor Justice together with our partners launched the campaign Fight the Highs to combat wage theft. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we observed the terrible practices of brands, especially concerning wage theft. Among these brands, one name stood out, which is Nike. So Nike, a brand synonymous with athletic excellence and cultural influence, has built its empire on the backs of workers who toil in appalling conditions. So during the pandemic, when the world was grappling with unprecedented challenges, Nike's practices only worsened. They took advantage of the crisis, further squeezing their already underpaid workforce, most of whom are women in countries across Asia. So in February 2023, Asia Flow Wage and GLJ, together with our partners, we launched our campaign against Nike and then filed an OECD complaint against them. This step was not taken lightly. Since then, we have been fighting for Nike to meet our campaign demands through organizing and actions on the ground. Women garment workers are the invisible force behind Nike's massive profits, yet they remain marginalized and voiceless. But the brave women you will hear from today are four of many who have decided to lift their voices despite significant risk. So this webinar is one of the platforms where we shall expose Nike's past. It is a time for the world to see how this global corporate operates under the banner of the corporate social responsibility. In factories across Asia, women workers are systematically deprived of their rights and dignity. Our campaign, Fight the Highs, is a call to action against this systematic injustice against wage theft. We are not just fighting for fair wages. We are fighting for the respect and recognition that these workers deserve. Nike's actions are not just unethical, they are a violation of human rights. We must hold Nike accountable and demand that they change their practices. Since launching our campaign, we have mobilized support from across the globe. Workers, unions, activists, and consumers have joined force to demand justice. Every action we take brings us one step closer to our goal, ensuring that Nike respects the rights of its workers and pay them stolen wages. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Noah Dobbin-Bernstein, lead organizer from Global Labor Justice. And then he will be showing us some of how Nike portrays itself in advertising. Noah, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Abhirami. Yes, everyone, my name is Noah Dobbin-Bernstein. I'm a lead organizer with Global Labor Justice. And Global Labor Justice works to develop strategies together with unions and grassroots worker and migrant organizations. We build worker-centered campaigns that can move decision makers at the top of global supply chains. And we're a proud long-term partner of AFWA and glad to be part of this campaign together. Today, my job is to sort of show what Nike has been saying about itself in advertising and talk a bit about how that compares to their corporate structure and how they actually treat the workers in their company. So first of all, advertising is a huge part of Nike's business. They spend about $4 billion a year on advertising. And in recent years, an enormous part of that budget has gone to advertising that shows Nike as a champion of women's empowerment and of equality around the world. So here is an image that they show of what they would like us to see as Nike's relationship to women in Southeast Asia. And here are a couple examples of some of the advertisements that they've put out in the last few years. The first one on top is from an advertisement in China, and at the bottom in the United States. And here I think is the most extreme example. This is a campaign called Nike Equality that began several years ago, where Nike claims by putting its swoosh, its famous logo right underneath the word equality, that it is supporting equality for women in sports, particularly, but also equality all the way around the world. So as Nike is saying this about itself and projecting this image into the world, what is really happening in Nike's corporate structure and its supply chain? So here is an activity that we, did I stop sharing? Sorry about that.
Hello.
No, that happened. Okay, so can you see the screen again? So here's an activity that we did along with workers in Sri Lanka in Nike supplying factories earlier this year. We took a kilo of rice and looked at how the wealth is distributed across Nike's supply chain. So one worker gets a single grain of rice, which is the equivalent of about $100 a month. And then we looked at throughout the supply chain, who gets what amount. A supervisor gets about 3 grains of rice. An upper manager in a factory might get something like 8 to 10 grains of rice. The CEO of the factory company that supplies to Nike maybe gets a little more than 1,000 grains of rice in the example we used. And then we get to Nike itself and upper management in Nike. So the chief executive of Nike makes so much that we don't have enough rice left in the bag to show it. The CEO of Nike makes 24,000 times more than what a worker in Sri Lanka makes who is generating the wealth for this company by making the clothing. To put it another way, a worker in a Sri Lankan factory that makes Nike clothing would have to work 2,000 years to make a single month of the CEO's compensation. So while Nike talks a lot about equality and projects its own image as being a champion of equality, it is in fact one of the designers, one of the innovators, and one of the leaders of the most unequal system, and one of the most unequal supply chain systems that exists in the world. And it is important to note that Nike is not just another brand in this picture, but it really is a brand that for the last 40 years has been leading the way in creating these supply chains with deeply and grotesquely unequal systems. So we're here today because workers have decided to speak publicly about this and to show the vast contradiction between what Nike says, what it shows, and what it actually does. And so I won't take any more time. We'll turn it over to the four workers who are going to speak today, who can talk about their experience of inequality within Nike and why they've decided to fight back.
Thank you, Noah. So now let's hear from Leni Oktriasari, worker from Victoria Chinlung, Indonesia, and a union member of GSBI. During the COVID-19, Leni faced a 15% of wage cut, and her husband saw 50% of wage cut. Both of them quarantined for 14 days, and she struggled to provide food for her 6-month-old baby. Leni is still fighting for her rights, standing up against factory management's violations. So now let's hear it from her. Leni, floor is yours.
Selamat pagi, sore, malam, salam sejahtera buat kita semua.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Leni Oktirasari. I am 34 years old. I'm a mother of 2. I have been a permanent worker for 13 years at Qinglu Group, a Taiwanese company and a major supplier of Nike shoe products located in Tangerang, Banten. I currently live with my husband and 2 children while my husband works in a different factory in the area. I chose to work here because of the guarantee of permanent employment. The COVID pandemic 3 years ago was devastating for me. I was one of thousands of workers affected by a 15% wage cut and a reduction in working days from 5 to 4 days for 2 months, from July to August. And sadly, my husband also experienced a 50% wage cut at his workplace during the same period. And the saddest thing for me during that time was that I was infected by COVID-19 and I had to be in quarantine for 14 days. And I was unable to care for my children. And what devastated me the most was not being able to breastfeed my 6-month-old. So I had to pump daily, store it, and then have it fed to my baby. Meanwhile, my husband did his best to help with our first child's needs before going to work. He did all of this while I was still in quarantine. The company showed no concern for my condition, even during my quarantine period. And instead, they dismissed 6,000 workers during that time. And the union I was part of, which opposed the wage cut policy, faced repressive reactions and threats of dismissal for standing up for our fundamental rights. And this pattern continues even now. As of May 20th in 2024, I joined other workers and unions to protest against my company's policy of increasing wages by only 1%. in clear violation of the local government's mandated 1.64% increase. Despite holding 7 meetings and mediation sessions with the local manpower office, the company remains unmoved. On May 20th, 4 unions, including ours at PT Victory Cinglu, Indonesia, held a protest in front of the factory. But the company's stance on wage increases and recognition for workers with over a year of service remains unchanged. Moreover, there have been numerous violations of the collective labor agreement by my company's management. And this include issues with uniform provisions, unpaid recreational allowances, the implementation of outsourcing for drivers, complicated insurance services, reduced break times, and a slow response to handling gender-based violence. Although the company has promoted gender equality in the workplace, these efforts have been superficial and not properly implemented. And this difficult experience compelled me to speak out and demand accountability from the brand. Throughout the COVID pandemic, they turned a blind eye and deaf ear to the suffering of thousands of workers in their families, and their responsibilities have yet to be fulfilled. And for me, the suffering has not ended. Even though the COVID pandemic has passed, I continue to speak out, demanding accountability from the brand that turned a blind eye and deaf ear to the suffering of thousands of workers and their families during the pandemic, and has yet to address these grievances. Just because we did not address the wage theft issue promptly during the pandemic, we have allowed Nike to feel free to exercise their bad practices until now. Nike talks about equality and empowering women and girls. Is Nike doing that by taking our money and investing in equality? We are not even able to get equal rights within their supply chain. So how can Nike promote themselves as a champion of equality? It's like they violate their own workers' equality, but portray themselves as a champion outside. I must say that the risks of repression, intimidation, and threats of dismissal are very real for us and other unions as we fight for the rights of workers in this company, which is PT Victory Cinglu, Indonesia. That's all from me. Long live labor, long live women. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenny, for that powerful presentation. So now let's welcome our next speaker, Pooja from Sri Lanka. As a former worker at a reputed apparel factory in Katunayaka, Pooja experienced the hardships and injustice that many workers experienced in 2020 during the pandemic. She couldn't meet her basic needs, often having just one meal a day. On top of that, she was terminated without any notice. So let's welcome Pooja to the floor. Pooja, the floor is yours.
I will
Good day to everybody. My name is Pooja. I work in a well-reputed factory in Sri Lanka. Before COVID, I started working in that factory. However, after 3 months, COVID came and the factory refused to give me an EPF number because I was just 3 months old. I worked as a daily wage worker those 3 months. Although wages paid to permanent workers, I didn't get a monthly wage. When COVID came, I had nowhere to go because I didn't have children and I didn't get a salary. I had to stay in the boarding house because I had nowhere to go. Just to give us 800 rupees per day, but I only received 1,000 rupees. Sorry, 1,000 rupees per day, but I only received 800 rupees.
ළමයිට කෑම අරව මේව දුන්නා. එතකොට මං ගිහලා ඇහුවාම ඒගොල්ලෝ මගේ ETF නම්බර් එක ඇහුවා සහ බාර්කෝඩ් එක ඇහුවා. ඊට පස්සේ මට ඒක නෑ කියලා මට ඒගොල්ලෝ දුන්නේ නෑ.
Permanent workers of the factory were given ration and food, but I was not given anything. They did not care that I was hungry. During that time, I only used 1 meal per day. And sometimes I didn't have anything to eat. I survived on the mango. Mangoes that were in the tree in my boarding house. And I had to wait for people around me to give me some food. In my factory, the majority of the workers were women. However, we were not given any facilities. Even though we worked for Nike, we were not given break. Even during menstruation, when we got our period, we could not access bathroom. We were not given break. Not just me, but all the workers in Hydra Money Garment have to suffer through this. I want to ask Nike, why did you do that? If we work for you, why could you not compensate and respect us? You did not even consider us as a human. There are more workers like you. What we want is a proper audience and not to be treated and unjustly treated. That's what we are requesting right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Pooja. So now I introduce our next speaker, Embore from Cambodia. Embore, a former worker at Violet Apparel, dedicated 17 years to the company. In 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, her factory shut down without providing any compensation to the workers. As the main earner in her family, losing her job left them without any financial support, plunging them into the uncertainty. Embore, the floor is yours.
Hello, I am Embore, former workers working in Violet factory. I work 17 years in Violet factory. I'm from Cambodia. In 2020, due to COVID-19 pandemic, the factory was suspended from 1st of May to 1st of July. It was for 2 months. But on the day we returned to work, the factory sent a message to workers that the factory was closing down. At that time, we were very scared. It was COVID time, and I was losing my job. So I was so scared, and the city was in lockdown as well. And then later on, when I checked with my friends, they brought me to work on a daily wage. And so I took, the, I work in that place for a short period of time, and then after that the factory relocated. I could not go there anymore. It quite far, and so I resigned. I mean, I did not have any more jobs, so I borrowed some money from people to start another small business. But then someone robbed me, so I got injured due to robberies. I could not go to work anymore. I was injured, and my old mother was left without support, and my children did not receive any care anymore. So that's why my aging mother, she need to did some work making cake to sell in order to support the family. When I see that my mother was facing a lot of difficulties, so although I was still sick, I went out to find labor. Other daily paid job. I could earn only $10 a day, and I need to pay a lot of things. I need to pay the interest for the debt that I borrowed, as well as the food. And every time people call to demand for their money, because I was supposed to pay them back, and I need to ask for their kindness to delay it, because I need to pay for my own food, as well as for my own treatment, and also to pay back for the bank loan as well. So during the COVID time, and then the factory closed down, I faced a lot of difficulties. I did not have a job. I lost income. I did not have salary, and the whole family I need to bear. I need to be responsible alone, and that's so difficult. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bore, for the presentation. Now let's move on to our next speaker, Sumi Akhtar, a former Hamim Group worker from Bangladesh, is one among 40 lakhs garment workers who struggled to survive due to wage theft during the COVID-19. After 14 years as a garment worker, Sumi feels like a machine, fearing retirement will leave her with nothing and make her burden on her family. Let's hear more from Sumi. Sumi, the floor is yours.
My name is Sumi Akhtar. I am a garment worker. Many Bangladeshi workers like me think that we Bangladeshi workers live in misery. We used to think that workers who work in factories abroad at least get higher wages and live comfortably. But after listening to all these sisters from other countries, I feel that the lives and suffering of workers around the world are the same. We have seen from TV and social media many advertisements about Nike, and there we can always notice that they're working towards equality and they're trying to eradicate discrimination and they're working for women's rights. But now I'm getting to see the true face of Nike, that they steal the money of workers and they wear masks in front of the society. And I think it is time to unmask them. We want all workers in the world to have a decent life and a decent wage. We want them to live with dignity. I have been working for 14 years as a garment worker. My husband also works in a garment factory, and I have two sons, and both of them are studying. We have made clothes for many well-known brands. In the 14 years of my experience, I faced many problems to survive, and I faced many challenges inside and outside the factory. During the pandemic, I was harassed by the management for joining a basic union, and at the end, I was fired in June 2020 from a factory because the owner of the factory shifted the factory to another place. During COVID-19 pandemic, our government announced a lockdown across the country for an indefinite period of time. During that time, our garment owners closed the factory for 1 month in April 2020. And in that month, I only received 65% wage. Like I mentioned, my husband also works as a garment worker, and we are the only earning member of our family. During that time, I did not have enough money to pay for our house rent and other maintenance and needs.
আমাদের জন্য বাচ্চাদের জন্য 3 বেলা পুষ্টিকর খাবার
I couldn't ensure nutritious meals for my kids for 3 times a day. My husband and I had to think daily where to get food from for the next day. I once thought that my children may have to stop going to school. During that time, I started taking loans from others to meet my family's needs. Even when the factories opened, we faced more problems. Like the factory didn't provide any transportation facility. They did not give us any health protection.
আমাদের ওয়ার্ক সেন্টারে পৌঁছানোর জন্য মাইলের পর মাইল
We walked miles to reach our workstations on time.
আমার কিছু সহকারী শহর ছেড়ে নিজের গ্রামে চলে গেছে।
Some of my colleagues left the city and went to their native villages. After the pandemic, some workers were laid off work and production targets were raised during that time. Somehow we passed that bad time. Garments is the only sector where experience is not valued as compared to other professions. Even after devoting my life to this industry for 14 years, I could not save up 14,000 taka, which is $120. Although the industry has developed, the workers have not yet developed. I think I will not be able to save up even 1 taka till the last day of working in garments factory. I feel like a machine now, and I will work for as long as I can. And after that, I will return from this industry as a burden to my family and the society. Through this campaign, I will say that my fellow garment workers and I will keep fighting against wage theft. Long live the workers.
Thank you, Sumi. The stories that we heard are not only their stories. These are the stories of workers from the Nike supply chain, and these are the suffering that they had to go through during the COVID. And then now I would like to thank our worker activist, Empore, Sumi, Pooja, and Lenny for their bravery in sharing their experiences of working in Nike's factories. So now it's time to hear from our next speaker, Elena Lobas from Communications and Workers of America. Please give a warm welcome to Elena. Elena, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Good morning or good evening, depending where you are. My name is Elena Lopez, and I'm a Senior Legislative Specialist at the Communication Workers of America, CWA. Just want to start off by thanking you all for being here to learn about how we can engage in this fight against Nike's exploitation of women workers. So for those who aren't familiar with CWA, we're a labor union in the US who represents workers in the telecommunications sector, media, manufacturing, tech, healthcare, and so many more sectors across the United States. And our union has a long history of fighting for dignity, respect, and labor rights in the workplace, not only in the US, but abroad, and especially equality for women workers. In our union, time and time again, we've seen companies, our employers, spend huge sums of money on stock buybacks while refusing to give workers their fair share. So for example, companies like Apple, Verizon, AT&T, all US-based employers have used their earnings not to invest in better equipment or operations, or even pass on the profits to workers, but instead buy back hundreds of billions of dollars in stock to enrich their CEOs and shareholders. And we've seen Nike do the same to garment workers, as you heard, a vast majority of who are women workers across the globe. So they rake in profits while cutting jobs, cutting wages, cutting benefits, generally exploiting workers who make the industry run and so profitable. So this fight against stock buybacks and corporate greed is what really first connected us to the Asia Floor Wage Alliance. And we're proud to join with workers, all across Asia and all across the globe to call out companies like Nike and start to tell them that they need to take responsibility for their global supply chains and pay living wages to workers who make their product. Because at CWA, we know that we cannot fight for our own dignity and respect in the workplace without helping our brothers and sisters abroad. Our fights are directly connected. We know that garment workers, especially women workers, are struggling to survive every day because of wage theft and exploitation. And it's past time for Nike to live up to its stated values and standards and respect women workers and respect workers' rights and really advocate for true gender equality for all workers in its supply chains, not just those at the top. So in July, with women workers all across Asia and the US, we're going to be hosting some joint actions to support this important international campaign and really ramp up pressure on Nike. So stay tuned for more information. And, again, thank you all for having me. Thank you for listening. And a special thank you to the other presenters for really sharing your stories and your experience. It was very eye-opening. We're really proud to be in this fight with you, and we'll continue fighting alongside you. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for the insightful presentation. And now I would like to welcome Amreen Anne, the Gender Justice Coordinator of Asia Flowage Alliance from Bangladesh, to deliver the closing remark for this webinar. Anne?
Our journey is far from over. We need your support to amplify our message and keep the pressure on Nike. Together, we can force them to confront the harm they have caused and take meaningful steps to rectify it. By standing with us, you are standing with the women who make Nike's products, the unsung heroes whose labor has been exploited for far too long. Let us continue to fight the heist, to demand transparency and accountability from Nike, and to champion workers everywhere. Let us use our voice to speak out against injustice and create a future where every worker is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Thank you for your unwavering support and solidarity. Together, we will continue this fight for justice. Thank you for joining with us. Have a good day and good night. Thank you.